There are few immutable video game facts, but one is this: everyone loves slashing and being slashed. Two recent video games have tapped into this primal instinct in us more than ever before, and they've been taking Steam by storm. Of course, I'm talking about the perennially compared Friday the 13th the game and Dead by Daylight. With both finally coming to consoles as well, we think it's finally time we weighed in on the debate. Hi, I'm Brendan with the Leaderboard. Come with me as I finally settle who is the slashiest in Friday the 13th the game versus Dead by Daylight. There can be only one! Background. Alright, so let's just recap really fast where these games come from. We've done approximately 23 billion videos on Friday the 13th, so if you want the full story on that, I suggest you check out one of our facts videos. Here are the clip notes for the neophytes. Friday the 13th was developed by Gun Media and Illphonic. They're based out of Kentucky and Colorado respectively, and worked on a game called Slasher Volume 1 Summer Camp that was obviously a tribute to the Friday the 13th horror franchise. Director of the films and owner of the rights, Sean S. Cunningham met with the indie devs and gave them his blessing and his franchise. And one ridiculously successful crowdfunding campaign later, they birthed Friday the 13th, the game, on May 26th, 2017. Dead by Daylight, on the other hand, was developed by Quebec-based Behavior Interactive. These French-Canadians have been around a lot longer and worked on PC ports of huge games, such as Halo Wars, Far Cry 3, Wolfenstein: The New Order, Shadow of Mordor, and the upcoming Star Citizen. With all that under their belt, though, Dead by Daylight is one of their first stabs at a truly original property, developed within the company. It released on June 14th, 2016, nearly a year before Illphonic and Gun dropped their asymmetrical horror slasher multiplayer survival horror game. Now, I put a pretty reasonable amount of time into both of these games, and to cut to the chase, I like both of them. These two games are the same aforementioned genre, and have reasonably comparable Metacritic scores, sitting at 71 for the PC version of Dead by Daylight and 61 for the PC version of Friday the 13th. Okay, thanks for watching the video. You can click the bell icon to become part of the notification squad. No, seriously though, I do like them both, but there are important nuances to each, and I do have a preferred game. I'm putting a blanket disclaimer here that obviously a lot of this will be based on my opinion, and the combined 160 some odd hours I have of playing both games. If you prefer one game to the other, I am not here to tell you you're wrong whatsoever. You slash you, buddy. This is just what I think. So anyway, let's crack right into it. If they're both multiplayer games with nearly invulnerable OP killers and desperate survivors who have to jump through hoops to escape, what's different about them? The survivors, objectives, and leveling systems. Both Dead by Daylight and Friday the 13th have a host of playable survivor characters to choose from, and the idea behind both systems is that you choose your survivor based on how you want to play. In Friday the 13th, this is done through giving the 11 counselors viewable stats. Jenny has 2 intelligence, where Debbie has 10, and so on. You choose the counselor you prefer based on these stats and your playstyle. Leveling allows you to unlock perks, which can slightly adjust the counselor based on how you want to play, but at the end of the day, no amount of stacked perks will ever make Jenny's repair as fast as Demi's. If you want to repair, you play Debbie. If you want to hate your life, you play Kenny. The counselor you pick determines your playstyle. The different Jasons, for their part, have no perks to speak of. You use your leveling to unlock different gloriously animated kills. It's also worth mentioning here, in case you don't know, that you can't actually choose to play Jason in Friday the 13th. You can stack the deck in your favor by saying you prefer to play him via a menu, but at the end of the day, the computer chooses quasi-randomly who will play Jason for that round. You play the Jason lottery, and you win or you lose. That simple. For this reason, it's actually very tough to main as the killer in Friday the 13th. You pick your counselor, and if you are so inclined, you hope. By contrast, Dead by Daylight does things quite differently. The 11 survivors you choose from more or less all have the same stats and play the same way until you actually start leveling up. See, Dead by Daylight also has perks which you attach to your survivor by leveling them in what they call the blood web. It's kinda like the sphere grid in Final Fantasy X. You earn blood points in matches, and then you click and choose exactly where you want to spend them. Most of the blood web is filled with items that will assist you in your objectives, and these things called offerings, consumable items that you burn at the start of a match to affect gameplay. This time it'll be harder for the killer to see me. I want to play in Haddonfield. Things like that. But every once in a while you'll unlock a perk in the blood web, and the perks are where the survivors really start to differentiate. There are some shared ones that all survivors have access to, but each has 4 individual unique perks, and they are really what change the playstyle for the characters. Fung has one where her sprint doubles after jumping a barrier. Jake is able to sabotage hooks without a toolbox. Ergo, Fung is fast and Jake is sneaky. See what I mean? Now, the problem with this system, in my opinion, and this is important to mention here, is that honestly it requires research. Once you spend blood points on a survivor, they are spent, and survivors level independently of one another. You can have a tuned up level 39 Dwight and a plebeian level 5 Ace, and unless you're gonna invest another 20 hours into leveling Ace Visconti, well, that's just sort of that. It's not a major thing, but it definitely discourages trying out the different survivors in favor of focusing on one and getting him or her to the top level. In contrast, perks in Friday the 13th are shared. It's convenient, and it allows me to sort of just play who I want when I want. Because it's important to level your survivors in Dead by Daylight, because the killers have perks too. More on that in a bit, let's just wrap up the survivors here. In Friday the 13th, there are many different ways to escape from whatever camp you're dumped into, be it the car, the boat, calling the cops, or just waiting out this 20 minutes. In Dead by Daylight, there are a mere 2. You either have to clandestinely repair 5 generators and power an escape door to run to Sweet Freedom, or find a key in one of the chests scattered around the map and escape through a hidden and randomly placed hatch. The hatch will also spawn on the map and you can escape from it without the key, provided you are the only survivor left alive and at least 2 generators are active. That's it. This, as well as the fact that there are a maximum of 4 survivors each match, as opposed to F13's 7 counselors, means that gameplay and teamwork are a lot more focused. If the killer dispatches somebody and puts them on a hook in Dead by Daylight, almost assuredly you will have one of your 3 teammates running up to help you at some point. Unless, they're jerks or whatever. Less people means there's a higher risk for sticking out your neck for your friends, but also a higher reward for saving them. It's interesting, and a huge difference from the comparatively cutthroat nature of Friday the 13th, where it's often, hey, repair the boat, get away from a boat! This might also sound obvious, but the lack of variety of possible escape methods in Dead by Daylight also means that there are less distractions to draw the killer's attention. Combine this with literally no means to defend yourself, and you have a game that's markedly scarier and more difficult than Friday the 13th. Take that as you will. The killers. Of course, no slashing would be getting done without the slashers to slash. So who's slashing? As of right now in Friday the 13th, you have 7 variations of series mascot Jason Voorhees to choose from. 8 if you count the purple NES reskin as a different version. They vary slightly in their weapons and abilities, but it comes down to more or less the same playstyle every time. You warp around the map, you use sense, you lay traps, and grab and cause mayhem, and generally do anything you can to kill as many counselors as possible in 20 minutes. What really varies between the Jasons are the different kills you can achieve, which you can spend experience points to unlock. Some of these are seriously awesome, but it's worth mentioning that it's an aesthetic difference almost entirely, both in the version of Jason and the unlockable kills he comes with. Now, this stands in stark contrast to Dead by Daylight. One of the best points about the Quebecois game is how startlingly different each of its currently 10 killers is to play as. The Huntress is ranged. You can't hear Mike Myers coming. The Hunter and the Hag lay traps and they do different things. Killers vary in speed, technique, and strength even before you start cracking into the blood web, which adds to and shapes their powers immensely. It also, importantly, changes how you play against the killers. One of the first things I do when I'm playing Dead by Daylight is to see if I can make out who the killer is ASAP. Playing against Freddy is a totally different game from Leatherface, and your tactics in hiding have to change as well. For example, the Huntress resupplies her projectile hatchets from the closets that you usually hide in, making them way more dangerous to hide in than if you're playing against the Nurse, who usually has no reason to go in them, but she can warp through objects, making those pallets you throw down behind you way more useless. You get the point. It's really exciting and switches up gameplay in a way that the different variations of Jason in Friday the 13th just don't. Oh, it's part 3? Cool. That's about all the tactical information that gives me. Jason is Jason is Jason. It is funny, though, that Dead by Daylight, in its race to scoop up literally every iconic slasher villain besides Jason, has started to overlap in some killers. Like, when the game launched, there was the Hillbilly, a disfigured chainsaw-wielding cannibal. As of September 14th, 2017, DBD added Leatherface from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, a disfigured chainsaw-wielding cannibal. These two do play slightly differently, but, well, I mean, they're basically the same thing. Only time will tell if the killers remain as distinct as they are now as the roster expands and more of the real thing come to conflict with their legally distinct knockoffs. But as of right now, it's really good. Now, as I mentioned before, Dead by Daylight also allows you to main the killers. From the menu, you select if you want to play as the killer or the survivor, and that's that. F13's ambiguity of who will be Jason is nowhere to be seen. The killers also level through the blood web, just as the survivors do, and, well, here's where we start to get into some of my problems with Dead by Daylight. Alright, so, here's the thing. The killers in DBD are overpowered to begin with, and the perks just make them stronger, some to the point of being downright unfair. Now, once again, this wouldn't really be a problem if the game encouraged you to play around and switch up killers or whatever, but it explicitly discourages you from doing so through its punishing level system. So, if you come up against a killer who has all the top tier perks, knows where you are on the map at pretty much any moment, and can one-hit kill you, kinda what's the fun? Here's another knock against DBD. Of those 10 killers, only 5 come with the base game, which sits at $20. If you want the full roster, be prepared to pay out an additional $32 to get the rest of those killers. That's more than paying for the game twice. Now, this is, of course, elective, and each additional killer comes coupled with the survivor, except Leatherface, sorry bud, but it's still worth mentioning that Friday the 13th only hides Jasons and counselors behind level walls, and most of those are reasonably low. You'll have pretty much all the Jasons and counselors after a dozen or so hours of gameplay, no extra cost. F13 does also have paid DLC consisting of costumes, emotes, and some more kills for Part 4 Jason, but absolutely nothing affecting gameplay, and the base game sits at $40. Shame on you, French Canada, shame on you! Mais pourquoi, mes amis? Mais pourquoi? And before you ask if I paid for all that DLC, yes, I have almost all of it. Hashtag Brendan is the problem. The verdict. Okay, so here's the thing. I do genuinely enjoy both of these games. I think that they both have their place in the horror gaming community, and I am genuinely baffled by the rivalry between the two. Dead honest, if you like one, odds are that you'll really like the other. They're similar enough in concept and execution, and they're both shockingly addictive. That being said, here's what it comes down to. Dead by Daylight is hardcore, competitive, and stressful, and Friday the 13th is casual, lighthearted, and fun. Now, if you ask me personally, most days of the week, I'll have to say Friday the 13th is my favorite of the two. I find myself turning to its goofy alchemy more, simply because I have more fun playing it. That being said, I love having Dead by Daylight in my library and return to it more often than you'd think. It's hard to trade the fanboy terror of creeping through Haddonfield knowing Mike Myers is around the corner, or being pulled into a dreamscape by Freddy. I've actually been playing DBD more than its sister game this last week, simply because it was just Halloween and hey, I love being spooked. Let me put it this way, simplest terms possible. I scream a lot playing Dead by Daylight, and I laugh a lot playing Friday the 13th. I think that sums it up better than anything else. Besides, did you honestly think I could abandon my Friday the 13th waifu, Debbie Kim? No, I honestly couldn't. I mean, she's holding me captive. This video is my only way to tell you. Please, God, send the police! Hey, we did it! Once again, I'm Brendan. Thanks for watching Friday the 13th versus Dead by Daylight. What did you think of these two games? Who do you slash with? Tell us in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that bell icon to become part of the notification squad and subscribe to the Leaderboard, your home for video game fact.